Well, joining us now is a Polish economist, Professor Witold Orlowski. You've been involved in the Polish economy for over 2 decades right now. Back already in 2002, you served as the economic advisor to Aleksander Kwaśniewski, the then president, who was there to sign the accession treaty of Poland to the European Union. If you could tell us a little bit about those times. And from what I know, I mean, from what we remember, we think that all of Poland was eager to join the EU, but there was some opposition. I wonder if you could tell us what some of the sort of darkest predictions might have been back then, and what sectors of the economy were opposed to EU's accession back then.
Yes, I remember very well. There was a lot of, well, actually, it wasn't just a fear, it was also a fear that was kind of fueled by the politicians who made the black picture even more black, even blacker. And but surprise, surprise, the most hesitant group of Polish people before the accession were the farmers. And surprised because they were afraid of 3 things. I mean, the first point, Poland will be flooded by the imported food. The second point was the incomes of farmers will therefore fall dramatically because the agriculture will fully collapse. And the third point is the foreigners will buy the Polish land for almost nothing, given that the agriculture is practically bankrupt and so on and so on. That was that was not the only group that was afraid of, but probably the most afraid of the EU membership. And the funny thing is that was the group that benefited from the EU membership. Not only probably one of the biggest gainers, but although the fastest return came, because instead of Poland being flooded by the imported food, actually we had more than doubling of the exports of Polish food in just 1 year. Because there was an incredible increase of the Polish exports, and moreover, with a growing over time huge surplus, means Poland exporting much more of the food than importing. Secondly, today the farmers, actually, they get something like almost half of the... agriculture in the European Union is under some special regime, and not to going too deeply into the why, into the problems, why it's working this way, but in any case, the incomes of Polish farmers are today twice as much because of the EU funds that are distributed. So half of the income of an average Polish farmer is coming from the EU budget.
Right. And it's so clearly visible when you travel to the countryside.
It's so clearly visible.
I mean,
yes.
You could see the increase in wealth.
You can see all the funny thing, because the farmers are protesting once again, and you see them with all these new machines that they are using now for protest against.
History makes full circle here.
Yeah. So it's obviously one should remember that that was because of 2 things. I mean, first, the farmers. Poland has got a traditional farming. And somehow the traditional farming has got always a problem. I mean, it's kind of afraid a bit of the free market, of the liberal policies, and farmers were afraid of that. But the second point is that normally the rural areas are much more kind of culturally conservative than the big towns or cities in general. And that was although the element that so altogether made the Polish farmers listen very eagerly to all these predictions that the West will destroy the Polish agriculture.
That's right, and we've almost got a deja vu right now with potential accession of Ukraine.
Exactly. I mean, once again, the funny thing is that 20 years ago, the French farmers were telling exactly the same about the Polish farmers that the Polish farmers are telling now about the Ukrainian farmers and the effects of the enlargement of the EU. Obviously, the farmers were not, you asked about the group that was the most skeptical, but obviously there was some skepticism in the other groups as well. And I remember even the times when it was many people in the Polish industry were telling that all this competition that will increase after that can be damaging for the Polish industry. Well, actually, Polish industry flourished because of that. I mean, Poland's exports altogether, 80% going to the EU markets, increased from some 60 billion euro in the year 2003 to more than 400 billion euro last year. So, you know, normally we think that this type of the increase of exports, some 10% or more a year over 20 years period, it's something that's happening only, you know, in Korea, in Taiwan and in China, but it also happened here. Not only in Poland, in many countries that joined the EU at that moment. And that totally transformed the Polish economy. The biggest gains of Poland from the EU membership are actually not the structural funds. They are important, but this is not the main gain. The main gain is this incredible increase of the production, investment, exports of Poland that was possible only because of the fact that Poland became a part of the single market.
So seeing that, opinion polls, for instance, show that Poles are overwhelmingly, you know, in favour of being in the EU as of now. However, at the same time, some are very sceptical about the euro. Mm-hmm. So, or some really EU initiatives that we already mentioned, like, for instance, the Green Deal. As going too far or perhaps limiting now the power of the state as such. So how would you explain that? How do we navigate this?
There's a very simple explanation. If you really read carefully, sometimes although between the lines or comparing various information, then you will find that Poles, well, actually, majority of Poles are against either the introduction of euro at all or introduction over the next couple of years. I mean, a lot of people will tell that, yes, they would accept euro, but maybe 10 years from now, not today. And the main reason is actually pretty simple. And Poles are very much afraid that the introduction of euro means the dramatic increase of prices. And the politicians are telling them that this is going to happen. They are sometimes lying, sometimes taking out of ignorance because... but the truth is that Poles are also informed by Germans, by the Italians, who also say, you know, cappuccino price increased so much and so on. And so on. And there is some truth, obviously, in that. The point is that the increase of that, by the way, was not as big as the Germans think. I mean, all the statistics are showing that there was some, on the average, 1% increase of prices after the euro introduction. Some items that are very important, like cappuccino in Italy, the price increased more, and that's why people think that everything increased. But actually, the increase was not so big, but the Germans actually did a lot of errors while introducing the euro. In a sense, I must say, with some Schadenfreude, if you wish, in German, that the Germans were so sure that, you know, in their well-established trade economy, nobody will, you know, make the extra profit on, you know, recalculating prices from marks, Deutschmark to euro, that they didn't care really about. Well, afterwards, a lot of countries introduced the euro, and somehow the countries learned what to do to avoid this type of the increase of prices after the introduction. So in Poland, we more or less know how to do it, but the point is when. That's right. How to get Poles.
I mean, Poland is a net exporter right now, and if we do go into the euro, it'll be much harder for us to keep the prices of our exports competitive, wouldn't it? I think that's the main sort of fear.
Yes, but that's the economists have got the answer to that. The point is that if you've got, you know, a kind of volatile, weak currency, and you are losing the competitiveness, then the firms obviously wait for the government, central bank to move some towards a weaker currency to devaluate it and so on and so on. And once you've got the euro, the situation is different. The firms know that they cannot count on the devaluation. They must simply, if they are losing the competitiveness, they must increase the productivity and use the much modern machinery. There are so many ways in which you can, by automatization of processes, by using the robotics.
Do we have the capital to do that?
Yes, we do.
Have we reached that level?
Yes, we do. Yes, this is exactly the moment at which Poland must start thinking in this direction. Please remember one thing, and that's all the 20 years perspective. 20 years ago, Poland has got the unemployment of over 20%. Today, Poland is a zero unemployment country. Means formally there is some 3% unemployment, but that's a normality. I mean, we call it the natural rate of unemployment. Means everybody who wants to get a job gets it without any problem. And that means that there is a room for the increase of wages, but increase of the productivity, replacing the... I mean, we will rather have a shortage of people rather than a risk of people losing jobs and unemployment growing because of the automatization. So this is the moment at which Poland, after having used this big resources of the qualified, skilled labor, now our development must change into increasing the productivity of the labor rather than counting on the increase of the quantity of the number of people working. That's not going to happen. And this is
so we're
in general the direction
another
of the,
stage
this
of
is
development.
Yes, this is another state of development. Poland is approaching the way in which must join the, let's say, the leading country in the world in this type of the development in which you do not think any longer about let's employ more people. You think about make the people who are employed more productive.
Which clearly shows that there is still some room for improvement, but a mammoth task ahead. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and for your insights.
My pleasure. Especially today.
Yes, especially today. A momentous day. 20 years of transformation, and when we look at the images of the way things were 20 years ago, and we see this country now, I mean, it's a mammoth task by Poland's leaders as well as the leaders of the European Union.